Hey everybody, good morning. This is Carl Choi. I am the co-founder and publisher of 24/7 Comics. So today I want to bring a very different type of show to you guys, and it was very much inspired by a lot of unboxing shows out there. As you guys may know or may not know, big collector of stuff. So I collect magic cards, comic books, original comic art, which has become the centerpiece of my collecting journey. Been watching my friend Carl, even like Swagger Haas and folks that are also collectors do a lot of unboxing shows. So it's been on my mind on what would be my version of it. Since we're in this intro episode, let me welcome you to the very first episode first. And it's called Collector's Christmas. Why am I calling it Collector's Christmas? I'll kind of go into it more. Every time I open one of these boxes, it really just takes me back to this childhood feeling, the Christmas morning surprise. I think we used to do Christmas evenings, but the wonder, the joy, and these days with just the world being a little crazy, a little unstable, social media is getting bombarding you all the time. I do feel like cherishing these moments. It's really important. So why Christmas? So I came from a family of pastors. My father's a pastor, my grandfather's a pastor. I grew up in the Christian church. And so it kind of taught me a lot about rituals. Felt like every Sunday, wake up, get ready, we had to go to church and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, what's weird was, in my, as soon as I became a teenager, I kind of left the church, right? The truth is that I think back, I think I found a new one in the comic book community. It's not that different. I mean, we've got our prophets, the artists, the writers. We've got our scriptures. That just happens to be in the form of panels. We have our idols and a lot of our grails. And our churches are our local comic book shops and conventions, right? So this show is not about worshiping stuff. It's more of a celebration. I want to, document a journey of gratitude and also really take this show as a way to collect with intention. Ultimately, at the end of the day, everything we own, we're stewards. We're temporary stewards because we're all here for a very, very short time. Different things cost different things. It doesn't make one thing better than the other. It really comes down to the time that we spend on these things, right? The time we even spend to earn the resources so we could purchase and trade for these things. It all goes back to time, right? I want to just kind of reflect on the little miracles that come along the way, and I thought that was very interesting because at the end of the day, it's really about often unwrapping the unexpected. Obviously, with some of these unpackings and unboxings, for the most part, kind of know who it's coming from and what it's about. There's a few packages today that I actually don't quite remember because it's been so long. So with that said, welcome to Collector's Christmas. Actually, I'll start with this one. I actually have no idea where it's from, so I'm gonna go and rip it open, and let's see what I got. Alrighty. So let's go back to kind of topic. Like I mentioned, my father's a pastor. My grandfather's a pastor as well, and so I know the Christian world inside out. Okay, now that I'm fully immersed in the world of comics, it's funny. I have to admit that the power and the miracles that happens in the church are also kind of driven by very similar things that you find in the comic book industry. Number one, I would say foundationally, is the community. Don't think I would have a collection like I have today if not for the community. And that in itself is a miracle because you don't know who you're going to meet at a lot of these conventions. You obviously have, we all have our own personalities and things that we're into, and you're not going to get along with everybody. But at the same time, like without people, you just won't be exposed to the kind of opportunities that there are in collecting. And why I think that's important to acknowledge, it's a collaborative effort. And so I do feel like foundationally, the comic book world and the church is very, very similar. I do want to say, like at the end of the day, be thankful for what you have. So here it is. Unpacking number one. Wow. Okay. I have a few things to say about this. Number one, it's a surprise. I won't say for who, but it's gonna be a gift. These are the original Rift War books. So you may or may not know what they are or care, but I'll talk about them. In fact, if you guys follow science fiction, you may or may not know about Rift War being a 1980s novel series written by Raymond E. Feist, Jan E. Wirtz on the second 3 trilogy. Basically between a war, pretty much the East and the West, but they find each other through these magical portals. What's really fun about Rift War is it was actually, I think, Stegman's very first work in comics. If you're familiar with Ryan Stegman, he's done obviously a big thing, Spider-Man, now X-Men. It was a fantasy series that he was hired to launch. What's really cool about it is they were able to interpret the fantasy novels into comics. I'm actually not sure how well this did. It was only a 5-issue limited series, but I still remember when I first met Ryan, I asked him if he had this art available, because whoever I'm gifting these books to would really appreciate them. These are really special. I won't say much else. There are some kind of professional ties to this property for me. But yeah, Rift War, this is actually a set of gifts. They're actually not easy to find. And so I was pretty happy to find them. Grabbing these is like a miracle, a little miracle in itself. Yeah, Rift War, that's number 1. All right, the next one. I'm going to cover this up as well. It's going to be a board Mezzanite. And so let me open it up real quick. I think I already have it kind of untied. So voila. Oh, this is a piece from Fred Hembeck. And so Fred is quite the Renaissance man. In fact, I'll show you kind of where I got this. I got it through this Comic Art Fans, basically hosted by Bill Cox. Shout out Bill. He helps Fred sell his art. I actually don't know much about Fred, even before all this. I was really exposed to them through Comic Art Fans, but I always appreciated the fandom that surrounded his works. And so I had on my checklist to get something from Fred. This was it. I wanted something sequential. I wanted something that was more of a one-off story, because I do know that people love the character cards. I want something really interesting from him. And to be honest with you, this is very different than what I imagined, because when I had picked it up, it was a DPS, published as a DPS. But I had been in my car. So one of the things that if you're ever a participant in Comic Art Fans, I'm in the chats a lot, but often I'm driving and I'll have it on in between when I'm rolling calls for work. This one in particular was a piece that I saw as soon as I turned on the Comic Art Live. And I fell in love with it right away in a small screen, but I had no idea it was so tiny. And so I think I rewatched the episode later and saw that it was a little more tiny. Yeah, so I think as we look at stories, why I like these like short stories is kind of going back to our main topic between comics and Christianity, is because Christianity is also very powerful because of the stories. If you think about comic book as a religion, we have our gods, which is often our heroes. We have our prophets, who are the creators themselves that deliver these stories to us. We have our scriptures, these issues of comics that come out. Churches are obviously the local LCS. Our pilgrimages, in fact, are like the conventions that we go to. We go, gather, and we celebrate, right? We in a way kind of worship. And ultimately, the foundation of it all, and why often I would say comic is a religion, it's built on storytelling, like the Bible or any mythology that you may believe or subscribe to. There's also, on top of that, if you think about the Bible, there's many versions of the same story. If you were to think about original text, it's based on a different language than English, right? So it was translated even through culture and time. Many of the versions of the same story, like King James, NIV, is kind of like New International Version is actually what it stands for those who aren't familiar. And it's also the same to me as like, Batman by Kelly Jones versus The Dark Knight by Frank Miller. So it's really adaptations influenced by culture for the new generation. I think that's kind of why I love these like one-off stories. This is really cool because it's not just one-off story, is a origin story of Mr. Henry Pym. So I really love it. I like how old it is. I feel like this paper has been pretty worn. I also do. I'm not against this kind of cutout, because this production art at the end of the day, and this is how they had to cut out and produce the art. I'm very happy with this. It's super cool. Happy to have one Hembeck sample, because I don't know if he's drawn a lot of the stuff that I love, but it'll get on my top drawer now. So let's dive into the topic real quick. What is the joy of unboxing and why we love it? And so I think unboxing does tie into the spirit of Christmas. I mean, this whole surprise and delight. In fact, often we relate religion with miracles. The Bible's full of them. As a Christian growing up, you're hearing about these stories, you're sharing these stories. It informs your faith that these things could potentially happen to you. When I think about miracle, like I actually looked up the definition of miracle. It actually says a surprise and welcome event not explainable by natural or scientific laws, often considered divine. And so if you think about like contextually of time, there's not a lot of science back then. And if there was science, it's really controlled by a very few that had access to documentation or access to information. So when I think about miracles, it does take me back to my childhood and probably yours as well, where everything's a surprise, everything's a miracle, because you just don't have that information that you have as an adult or the education to help inform why that moment of curiosity is special to you. You're just a sponge. You're taking in all this information, and that's why I feel like Christmas was a great way to, as America, to adopt in the mainstream culture, for us to learn what a miracle is, learn and be reminded that miracles do exist, because life's not easy. And as you get older, the more information you have, it actually makes things tougher, and it makes faith tougher to actually believe that things can happen for the good. Because as humans, we tend to stick to things that are a little more on the negative side, I guess. And we go, when's the next thing that happened to us? And we look forward to that, but we don't know when. And so I think the delta of when the last miracle happened to the new miracle, that to me is faith, is the faith journey, right? And ultimately, it's on a scientific level, is the dopamine that is rooted into something deeper than just consumerism. To me, it is spiritual. Like every time when we hold a piece of art, when we hold a piece of a product, it's real humans rolling up their sleeves to put their love and effort into interpretation of these stories and the art that they believe in as well. And so I do really feel like the joy of unboxing and why we love it is heavily inspired by Christian roots, which also inspired our culture. All right, so this next piece is very different, not something I would go on my way to grab. In fact, it's actually a very non-traditional type of marketing, non-traditional type of book. All right, so here it is. This is Alter Ego. You probably have no idea what this is. I didn't either. I was pretty intrigued by the marketing efforts behind the team. So I had a chance to, you guys may or may not know, Blackpink is a Korean pop band, girl group. The whole idol culture of K-pop is crazy. Speaking of religion and Christianity, that is a religion in itself. One of the most recent developments has been that a couple of the bandmates, Lisa specifically, spun off on her own. She left the band. Well, I don't know if they're still intact, but from what I hear is she has her own production company now. She appeared on the latest episode of White Lotus and played a significant role. And then she, I think, also performed at like the Academy Awards or the Oscars or something, part of the montage. So she's getting a lot of Western momentum and recognition. And it's pretty rare for like an Asian mega celebrity to cross over in any meaningful way. There's always kind of hope and dreams and appearances, but they never really get grounded. So I feel like whoever her new team is and her management, or even just herself, they're genius. They're smarter than most. Nothing against a lot of the folks who attempted before, but many of the folks that attempted the crossover did not understand the importance of the storytelling, which I thought this was very powerful, because she actually partnered with a veteran publisher who I had a chance to connect with. He was a fine gentleman and good guy, and shared a lot of his kind of philosophy surrounding publishing. Created this comic called Alter Ego, story by Lisa, and they had Mino Yabi, who's a Japanese artist, do the art, backgrounds, everything else. I'm not sure who else, but Josh is the guy I spoke to, who was a great guy as well. I'll flip through it. This is the first time I'm going to be seeing the art with you guys. Yeah, the art's cool. I mean, I could definitely see it targeting a younger audience. Dude, and this actually looks really good in my first impression. It's really good. And so we'll flip through this. Let's look at the comic together. It looks like tied into Lisa's theme for her next concert, which is Alter Ego. So she has these different characters that she plays, and not to spoil it, but I think top lines about this character who gets kidnapped by this alternate universe. And in this alternate universe, there's Alter Ego's version of herself, and then they kind of have to team up to fight the bad guys. But I gotta say, the art is very impressive. It's actually I'm excited to dive into this. It looks very readable, more than I can say for a lot of some of the stuff that makes the shelf, predominantly for the big two. I feel like a lot of the love and passion that was poured into comics in the 90s and what made it great, it's gone. This is not the case. This looks great. This is actually, to me, interpretation of like a manga meets American comics. What I hear is Lisa is heavily involved. She worked on the story itself. She was she even helped pick the artist and has been actively part of the process and has done really well. And so, wow, this is impressive. I really like this. So I'm not gonna read this whole comic with you guys, but it shows. They also include some prints. All right, so I'm gonna go to my next topic based on this. I had a really good conversation with Josh, like I mentioned, and the conversation was around how they are not distributing this through comic book shops. And I thought that was very interesting, because Josh has been around for a long time. For me, I understand where he's coming from, because they are, just through the power of Lisa's online presence, they're able to sell maybe 5x copies as they would as an independent distributor through comic book shops. And they could even quadruple the price of the comic. That says a lot about the business there, right? Fully digital. There's no overhead. There's no kind of having to politic. There's no limited marketing, and they're selling through. When he said that the local comic shop didn't really serve a role in his marketing strategy, I think that's great. Everyone has their way to sell through, and it sounds like he's kind of figured it out. Now, for me, though, for 24/7 comics specifically, I actually do believe local comic book shop has to be part of our strategy. And I'll tell you why. So one, like, great shop owners are like pastors, and they are preaching the gospel of great story. I do feel like beyond the physical book that that we have in our hand, that does capture a story. For lore, the travel, you do need evangelists to help give their interpretation of what your creators are actually trying to say. That's very powerful. And when they are willing to adopt you and actually, let's say, put you into their sermons to their flock, who are the local shoppers, all of a sudden there's another layer of discussion that can happen around the story. Because one of the most powerful things about comics is, I'll open this book up, there are panels, but every time we have to connect the dots and like move our eyes to another panel and read other words, you and I will have totally different interpretations, because this is such an active medium that we will imagine different things. We imagine the scenes transition very differently. And so that type of discussion, I think, is what makes local comic book shops great, because you could say, hey, like, what do you think about that book last week, or did you even read that book this week, and catch people up on what's happening. And in a way, it's very similar to Christianity. Community forms around these stories, and debates do happen, and like, in fact, morality gets challenged in these stories, because we may all relate to different characters within the book. Not every one of us is going to be Lisa, right? It's going to be, some of us want to be, you know, one of the 4 characters that's the supporting roles, and we're happy with that, right? We relate to that. I think, to me, I feel like the purpose of Comic-Cons are really important. I think as a business, maybe it's time to revisit, but as a culture, without local comic book shops, I don't think stories can travel and establish deeper roots like Marvel and DC did. So what I think is important, for at least in my stewardship of 24/7 comics, it is important for us to root ourselves in culture, and that's why we've never been in a hurry. For us, is take baby steps first, and then collectively get there when we can. And then the second thing about why I feel like, you know, physical gatherings are important is the conventions. Like, you know, these are like, you know, Christian conferences. I remember going to my very first, and there is a difference when you sing that worship song by Hillsong in a conference setting with 10,000 people to your, you know, 100, 200 person church without the worship leaders on the big mics and can sing like, you know, full on rock stars, right? Because our local church, or our Sunday church, they're not rock stars, they're volunteers. So yes, they will be offbeat, yes, they will be sometimes off key, because they're volunteering their time. Like they maybe get 1 or 2 rehearsals a week, but they're not professionals. When you go to conferences, you got freaking Hillsong or like Jesus Culture singing on as a job, like this full time, you know. So these guys are professional, they're leading you, and their speakers are freaking loud, and people are crying and feel the Holy Spirit. Like, it feels totally different. It's experience, and amplifies a lot of these discussions that we're having in our weekly church. And I do feel like in a very similar way, that's like comic book shops and going to conventions. Like, they're gathering of believers. We're pilgrimaging to the shows, and then we're going after things that we follow. So like, it's like the holy grounds, right? There's these highs, there's these connections, and you know, kind of dopamine and endorphins that come with like connecting with people that are share-minded. And to be honest, like, I think we spend more money when we go to cons because other people are doing the same thing, and it validates our yearnings, right? And often we come out, we're just so tired and burned out, is because we pour ourselves out into these conventions. And these are the same thing for Christian conferences. You go there, you want to give, you're reinforced, and you're just encouraged by everything that happens to that. Now, this next one, I know exactly what it is. It will be a piece of original art, which is probably my favorite topic. So let me tell a little story about how I found these guys. Actually, cannot for the life of me this morning remember where I found this guy, but someone got a commission from him. This guy's name is Shichigoro Shining. Found him on Instagram. I wanted a commission from him because I saw whoever I saw it from. I loved it. It was a physical painting, and so I reached out, and the guy said I have to wait for a year because it just takes a long time for them to do what they do. But here we are. Let me open this up. I think it's a painting. I am super excited. I've seen a preview already. I just have not seen it in person. You guys will see. Oh my gosh. Holy moly. Oh my goodness. All right, it's a painting. It's a physical painting. I don't even know what to say. I'm so blown away. So for those of you who don't know, so I reached out a year ago, and he said to reach out a year later, and I did earlier this year. And then he, a few months later, told me it was ready to go. Wow, I so blown away at the details right now. Like, I couldn't believe it. Some of you may know I have this Joker sketchbook. I had created a while back for my first sketchbook, and I had a ton of artists that's part of it, right? Matteo Scalera, one of my favorites. We got Mr. Matthew Lewinsky, who's also one of my favorites. Brian Chang, Mannix, of course. Oh my God, Wade Shack's the man, of course. All right, anyway, I'm not gonna talk about the whole book. I'll share it later. But it got me into this whole Joker thing. I have since now, kind of when I find Joker pieces or maybe even like commission opportunities, I would go and I would basically ask for Joker. Holy crap, this is awesome. So I basically asked the guy for his interpretation of Joker, and here it is. Man, I don't know what to say, man. This is like a techno Joker, kind of a gothic meets techno. It's just so unique. I am getting this damn thing framed for sure, and it's my wall behind me is long overdue for like a kind of a refresh. So this will definitely be part of that. But man, like the texture on this thing is freaking awesome. Shichigoro, that's the name, is amazing. And it's really interesting. Speaking of Christianity and collecting comics, this doesn't seem like something like a Christian would collect, right, or have in their house. Gosh, I think I've always been more attracted to this type of story because the church may not talk about it much, but there's so many dark stories in the Bible that moves you emotionally, and in fact serves as examples of what we're going to see through life. That I feel like the church under preaches, and they tend to focus on the positive stories, the miracles and all that. But there's also very dark stories that I think are way more relatable than anything else. I mean, David was not like a perfect guy. We have guys jailed for years, or guys stuck in the group of folks that Moses and them stuck in the desert for years. Like, those aren't great stories. They're tough, man. Like, they're trials, yeah, but I like going into the deeper, darker side of things, and this says it all. I mean, art is a way to move people. It's strange, but as humankind, we know our time is limited, but we think we live forever. And the cigarette is actually a great symbol of that. We challenge life. Like, we think we're going to live forever. We think we're invisible until we're not. We know all the warnings. There's a freaking, cancer death labels on cartons of cigarettes, but yet we continue smoking, right? And like, this here, I think is such a symbol of, God, the dark nature of the Joker. Like, the joke's on us, the Joker joke's on you. Wow, I am so blown away. The wait is so worth it. There's a canvas. I don't know if you guys can see the details in all this. I don't know what material it is, but like the lips on the Joker is raised. I think it's like a charcoal that they're using. There's a lot of whiteouts and stuff on the texture on this side. Oh my God, I am so blown away. This thing is freaking beautiful. And it's not what you expect walking into a church or whatnot, but I do feel like it speaks authentically into the human story. And so I'll close up a couple topics. One is just collecting as a stewardship. Hopefully it will set the tone for future shows. But ultimately, the way I see it is we're temporary stewards of all these pieces, unless you plan to live forever. To me, I'll have it in my hands for a number of years. At some point, we'll have to pass somewhere else. So often people either sell it, they put on auction, they put on eBay, they donate to museums or whatnot. We're all just temporary stewards. And these aren't just items. They're more so testimonies to the visions of the creators, which I think is really powerful. And that's why often when we meet our favorite creators, we're like starstruck, right? Because these guys moved us in a way that we didn't expect. One topic I want to discuss a little deeper later on is when we miss out on a piece. Sometimes collectors will say, I regret the pieces I missed out on more than the ones I bought. I've never regretted the stuff I bought. But sometimes missing out on a piece is grace in disguise, because if we get everything, we would always be chasing the next high, and we'll lose sight of the story in itself and the journey to acquiring these things. So like, there's no always this ups without the downs, and so it's really important that we recognize that as part of the journey. In my final reflection, I want to keep this show tight, but there's a way for me to show the new stuff that I've been picking up. This is my altar of gratitude to above, whatever you believe in. You could kind of give that gratitude elsewhere or wherever you're into. Ultimately, this show will be about myself, publisher of 24/7 Comics, sharing my original art collecting journey, my thoughts on culture, kind of what it all means in the context of the bigger story of the comic book industry. You're invited not just to watch me open, but to join the conversations, and let's talk about art, faith, wonder, miracles in the community. Present my very first unboxing video. Now, why this is important? It's important because it's not just a piece of art I've been waiting for a very long time, because it's actually a commission, and it's by an artist that I've wanted to have a piece from for a long time after he did a piece in my sketchbook. You guys know I've been really busy, so I haven't been able to actually head to some of the cons. I've been really missing out. So I want to do this unboxing also to highlight Power community. So my great friend Tom McDonald, he was able to attend C2E2. He was nice enough to head down that way, spoke a secret word to the artist who commissioned this, and basically shipped me this package. So I want to say thanks to Tom and invite everyone to be part of this unboxing. Very well done, Tom, in the packing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Bastian. Oh my goodness. Batman versus Azrael in front of a church. And here it is. Mr. Jeremy Bastian's interpretation. I really don't know how he pulls this off, because this thing is pretty sizable, and the lines, man, the lines. He uses a pen and he just draws and draws and draws. This is definitely the medieval version. I think very fitting for his style. You guys know I am a huge fan of the Quesada version, but I think for this style, it just makes a lot of sense. And even Batman himself is creepy. And anyways, Jeremy, thank you so much. This means a lot, and I really want to record this moment of reveal. Freaking awesome, dude. I'm like blown away. Look at that mask. Wow. Thank you, Tom. What a banger. Thank you for believing in the comic book industry. This episode is Christianity and comic books and Christianity. Would love to hear your thoughts. Please subscribe, like, and comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on this. It's let's unwrap the unexpected together in future episodes. I'm not shopping that much these days, so it might be less frequent, but hopefully you enjoy this show and it's something for you to think about and talk about. And if you see me the next time online somewhere or in person, come talk to me about it. I have a lot more to say. I had time to record what I could record today, and I would love to share more of you. Thank you for checking out the first episode of A Collector's Christmas, and I'll see you at the next Collector's Christmas. Take care.